Hello. I'm writing you all the way from Portugal to tell you about my grandfather's NDE. He had a serious case of pneumonia about a month ago. As he became sicker, he went into a coma. During that coma, he had an NDE. He saw himself outside his body, and he begun a journey. He went through a dark corridor,
not walking with his feet, but sort of sliding,
where there were freaky-looking beings trying to reach out and touch him. Those people was real aberrations, but they couldn't touch him, because there was something like an invisible mirror that wouldn't let them. As he came to the end of that tunnel, he saw himself on the other side. It was all bright and shiny there, a beautiful garden where he told me he could hear soft, magnificent music. In that place there was a group of people who seemed to be waiting for him. They were all in white, and they all had a rosebud painted on the chest area of their garments. It was a realistic depiction of a rosebud, with two leaves on either side of the stem. One of those people came sliding up to my grandfather, holding in his hand a real one of those rosebuds. As the person was about to give him the flower, my grandfather heard a man's voice saying, "It's not time." The voice said it twice, at which point, without giving my grandfather the rosebud, the person turned around and started moving back to the group.
I was in the hospital with an ectopic pregnancy. I was bleeding internally and signs of blood poisoning were present. On the way to the operating room, after having an injection to settle me down, I asked for a pastor, but was turned down. But it was all right because I had made up my mind that if I were to die, so be it. "Into your hands I place my life," I said to the Lord. On the operating table, the nurses told me to count from 1 to 10. On the count of 5, instead of continuing to count, I started to pray the Our Father. I did not finish it, because I was drawn into a black and somewhat greasy tunnel. It was pitch dark in the tunnel, and I felt like I was floating for a while. As I floated through the tunnel, I noticed that my abdominal pain was starting to go away. I saw a very bright light at the end of the tunnel. I felt nice, and the thought of being dead no longer bothered me. Near the end of the tunnel, I felt I was being pulled faster towards the light. Faces of people who had died, some whom I recognized and some whom I did not, were shouting, "No, go back. Go back. Go back." After that, I heard murmuring sounds. At the end of the tunnel, I found myself in the middle of all those people. I felt nice. I had no more pain, no more worries, and plenty of warmth. My daddy was also there. We were happy to see each other, but there were troubling whispers around. Almost everyone was saying, "No." There was a bad vibration in the air. The bright light had slowly transformed into a figure dressed in a white robe. Everybody became silent as the figure came towards me. The face of the figure was very bright, smiling and calm. I could even feel its warmth. The figure was not very tall, but was of average height and weight, and was neither a man nor a woman. I asked, "Are you God or Jesus?" I received a smiling response. "Evelyn, not yet. Go back. Go back." I said that I wanted to stay with my father. I was told, with a shaking of the head, "Evelyn, Evelyn, not yet. You have to go back." The other people who were around said, "Oh," and they smiled. I kept insisting on staying, but the figure said firmly, still with a smile, "Evelyn, you have to go back." I felt I was being suctioned back into the tunnel. The pain started to return. Somebody pulled my hands, and I was out of the tunnel. I was back in the operating room, aware of the pain again. I felt like I tried to get up to leave. I noticed the nurses pumping my chest. I saw myself as the body on the table. Still outside of my body, I tried to pull the nurses away, and I was telling them to stop because it hurt. However, they seemed unaware of my doing anything. Then one of them said, "She's breathing. She's back." And as I found myself on the table, I felt and heard myself breathe.